In the middle of the 19th century, Egypt controlled a stretch of territory running from the Sudan in the south, across Arabia, and up through the entire Levant. It had built this empire almost from nothing, and it had never lost a single battle to the power it technically still answered to, the Ottoman Empire. And yet, within a matter of months, almost all of that land was handed back to Constantinople without a fight. Which raises an obvious question. How does a country win every war and still end up losing everything? To understand that, you have to start with a French general who never even reached Egypt's borders on purpose. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded the Ottoman province of Egypt, hoping to use it as a stepping stone toward disrupting British trade with India. The invasion was a disaster. The British Navy trapped his fleet, and Napoleon himself abandoned the campaign to chase power back home. But the damage in Egypt was already done. The Ottoman governor's authority had collapsed, the local Mamluk elite were scrambling for control, and into that vacuum stepped an Albanian mercenary commander named Muhammad Ali. Now, you'd think that a foreign soldier with no dynastic claim to Egypt would have a hard time taking charge of it, but Ali played the chaos perfectly. He outmaneuvered rival Ottoman governors, won over local religious and merchant leaders, and by 1805, the Sultan had little choice but to formally recognize him as governor. 6 years later, Ali invited the last of the Mamluk Beys to a celebration at the Cairo citadel and had them massacred on the way out. With his only domestic rivals gone, Egypt was now entirely his. So what did he do with that power? He rebuilt the entire state from the ground up. Ali monopolized foreign trade to fund the treasury, seized agricultural land from religious endowments to bring it under state control, and used the proceeds to fund an ambitious industrialization program, complete with textile mills, shipyards, and weapons foundries, built almost entirely with borrowed European expertise. He introduced mass conscription among the Egyptian peasantry, something the Ottomans had never managed at scale, and hired French officers to drill the resulting force into a genuinely modern army. Within a decade, Egypt had a fighting force more disciplined, better supplied, and better led than anything the Ottomans themselves could field. And the Sultan, ironically, was about to become dependent on exactly that army. Because when a Wahhabi uprising seized Mecca and Medina, the Ottomans couldn't dislodge it, so they turned to Ali. He crushed the revolt and restored the holy cities to nominal Ottoman control, earning enormous prestige and making Constantinople look weak by comparison. A few years later, the same pattern repeated when the Greeks revolted. The Sultan again asked Ali for help, and this time Ali wanted paying up front. In return for suppressing the rebellion, he was promised Crete. The war in Greece went well for Egypt's army right up until Britain, France, and Russia decided an independent Greece served their own interests better than an intact Ottoman one. In 1827, their combined fleets destroyed the Egyptian and Ottoman navies at Navarino, and Greece broke away regardless. Ali had done the fighting, spent years and a fortune building the fleet that carried it out, and watched it get sunk at anchor by powers he wasn't even at war with. No compensation was offered, no apology followed. As far as the great powers were concerned, Egypt's navy had simply been in the way of a decision that had already been made without it. Furious at being left uncompensated, Ali rebuilt his military and in 1831 invaded Ottoman Syria himself, demanding the territory as payment for services already rendered. Because most of the Ottoman army was tied down on other frontiers, there was almost nothing standing in his way. His son, Ibrahim Pasha, routed the Ottomans at the Battle of Konya in 1832, and the road to Constantinople itself lay open. But Ali knew that pushing further would drag the European powers into the war directly, so he stopped and negotiated instead. The resulting settlement handed him Syria, Crete, and parts of Arabia outright. Now, you'd think that after 2 decades of building an army, winning every major engagement, and forcing the Ottomans into humiliating settlements, Egypt's position was secure. But the Ottomans hadn't given up. In 1839, still smarting from the losses, the Sultan tried again, only for his army to be crushed a second time at the Battle of Nazib. Days later, the Ottoman fleet defected outright to Egypt, and the Sultan himself died before news of the disaster even reached him. On paper, Egypt had just won total victory. This is where the story turns. Ibrahim wanted to press the advantage and potentially replace the new teenage sultan altogether. Ali was more cautious, aware that Britain, Russia, and Austria were watching closely and had no interest in seeing the Ottoman Empire collapse or a new, ambitious power dominate the Eastern Mediterranean. Britain in particular depended on a weak but stable Ottoman state to keep the overland route to India secure, and a strong French-aligned Egypt threatened exactly that. So the great powers issued Ali an ultimatum: withdraw from Syria or lose everything. Ali gambled that France, which had trained his officers, invested heavily in his industrial projects, and quietly hoped Egypt might one day host a canal linking the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, would shield him diplomatically. For a moment, it looked like it might work. The French Prime Minister, Adolphe Thiers, mobilized the army, fortified Paris, and publicly declared France would fight rather than watch its French client get dismantled. But talking tough and actually fighting 4 other great powers at once turned out to be very different things. France's own king had no appetite for a general European war over Egypt. Thiers was pushed out of office, and his replacement quietly ordered the fleet home and walked the threats back. French support evaporated almost overnight, and with it went Ali's last real source of leverage. Left without a protector, Ali had no leverage left. British and Ottoman forces landed troops along the Syrian and Lebanese coast, bombarded Egyptian-held ports, and Ibrahim's army was forced into a full retreat back to Egypt. The 1841 settlement that followed stripped Ali of Syria, Crete, and Arabia entirely. He was allowed to keep Egypt and Sudan, granted hereditary rule for his family, and required to cap his army at a fraction of its former size, all while remaining formally a vassal of the Sultan he had twice defeated on the battlefield. So, why did total military success translate into total political defeat? Because in the 19th century, winning a war and being allowed to keep the spoils were 2 separate questions, and the second one was decided in London and Vienna, not on any battlefield in Syria. The European powers weren't interested in rewarding Egypt for beating the Ottomans. They were interested in preventing any single actor, whether Constantinople or Cairo, from controlling the region outright. A collapsing Ottoman Empire raised the possibility of Russia pushing south towards the Mediterranean, and a triumphant Egypt raised the possibility of a new power controlling the overland route to India. Neither suited Britain, so the safest option is the one nobody in Cairo had bargained for. Keep the Sultan weak but standing, and quietly clip Egypt back down to size before it grew too big to manage. Preserving a nominally intact but permanently weakened Ottoman Empire while making Egypt autonomous underneath it in everything but name gave Britain and its rivals real influence over the Eastern Mediterranean without ever having to negotiate through Constantinople. Muhammad Ali kept his throne, and his family kept Egypt for generations afterwards. For the great powers, that arrangement was worth far more than anything Ali had actually won on the battlefield, and it's a large part why he's remembered today as the founder of modern Egypt rather than as the man who nearly broke the Ottoman Empire in 2.